All right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the second annual Common Language Story Slam. Let's hear it. We're all here. Yes. All right. It's going to be an amazing afternoon together. We, of course, have all of you guys in the room. Thank you so much for traveling to be here. We got people from Halifax, Mexico, Whistler. We got a couple people from Edmonton, which it's a big night for Edmonton. I don't know, you're going to get to meet Dan in a moment. He's representing right now. He's a big Oilers fan. But we're very excited for everyone who's come in the room. We also have 80 people online together watching the stories with us. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for showing up, being a part of things today. We're going to talk a little bit about digital storytelling really quick. Common Language Digital Storytelling is an organization that I started. My name is Mike Lang. I am a digital storytelling facilitator, and also in my day job, am a assistant professor at the University of Calgary. And today, you guys are going to get to watch some amazing short films. And these short films, what makes them so special is that they're actually made by the person who is going to be up on stage with us today, or either on screen or on the stage here. And, you know, not professional filmmakers, right? But they get to work with a facilitator. And so Common Language trains facilitators all over the world. And a lot of them are here in the room today with their storytellers. They got to help someone through this process. But, man, I just love it when people tell their own stories about their own life. How cool is that, right? You know, and so there's going to be lots of personal photos and images and stories today, and it's told from the person who lived it. And so that's what a digital story is. You're going to get to watch, of course, 6 of them today. But a really quick story to get us started. I actually have the wonderful pleasure of getting to work with an amazing organization, Atlas Institute for Veterans and Families. We're going to get to watch Colin's story at the end of the day. It was made in one of those workshops. And a couple of years ago, I was doing a workshop with them, and I said, we're going to have a really great time together, you guys. So there were 6 of us online. I said, we're going to have such a great time together. And I had someone raise their hand, and he said, Mike, we're telling stories about PTSD. What do you mean we're going to have a great time? And I was like, that is a great question. You know, like, what do I mean by that? You know, and it was just like this moment of like, I don't know what to say. But I had just come back from a very interesting trip down the Zambezi River. Alex, you can show the photo here. So this photo was on my desktop at the time, and I just shared my desktop, and I said, this is what I mean. You know, this is what I mean. We're going to have a good time together. And I sort of told them a little about this trip, and it's down this crazy whitewater river in southern Africa. You know, big, massive rapids. There's also crocodiles in the water. There's hippos. There's feces-throwing baboons, which we found out on a side hike. You know, and it's 40 degrees Celsius. You know, the waves are insane, absolutely insane. We're rowing a raft with literally things that are made out of tree trunks, oars that are made out of tree trunks. And you'll notice there's only one oar. It's because we broke the other one. So we're literally going down these rapids with one oar. That's my friend, Mr. Ryan Bentley right there. I'm in the front with the red helmet. And so I told them a bit about the trip, and I was like, yeah, this is what happened. And then I said at the end of it, it was a good time. And people were like, yeah, that doesn't sound like a good time to me. And I was like, but you know, what do we mean by having a good time together? And that's sort of, then we put this question up on the screen, you know, what does, good does not always equal? And I said, let's just fill in the blank. What does that mean? What good does not always equal? Let's hear it right now. Let's just see if anyone has one. What could you fill in the blank there? Good does not always equal. Let's hear. What? Fun. Sometimes a good thing is not always. There was moments, like for example, when I was swimming towards the raft and someone yelled "croc." That was not fun. That was not fun. You know. But it was still a good experience, right? So what else? Easy. Yeah, good one. Easy. Yes. Yeah, that was not an easy trip. Trying to fall asleep at night when it's 40 degrees Celsius out and you're covered in sand. That was not easy, right? It was not easy, but it was still a good trip. What else? Comfortable. Yeah, it was not comfortable. There's lots of times, right, at the top of those rapids where I was not comfortable looking down at this like 30-foot drop and wave, you know. And so we had this conversation with a bunch of the veterans who were in this workshop. And I said, you know, that's what I mean by good, right? It's not always going to be easy. It's not always going to be comfortable. It's not always going to feel safe. You know, there may be moments of vulnerability, maybe moments where you'll feel things. But hopefully, in the midst of all that, it can be a good experience. And that's what I mean by good. When we have a good time together today, that's what I'm hoping for, is that, in these stories, you'll be able to glean wisdom from these stories that you'll be able to apply to your own life. And you'll walk out if you're saying, I felt emotional at times. These were difficult stories at times, but I feel like I took something away that I can, apply in my own life. And so that's what we mean by having a good time together today. Some of these stories are not easy, right? But hopefully it'll be good. And that also means we're going to be having conversations with each other, because it's in conversation with each other that we actually are able to pull out the wisdom, the good things that we can take with us once we leave here. So I am going to pass it over to Heather. But before we do this, I also know it's going to be an amazing afternoon, because the type of people who show up for events like this are the coolest that you'll ever meet. So we're going to just high five 5 people around us and say, "You're super cool. I can't wait to talk to you." Ready, set, go. All right. There we go. Yeah. All right.
Hello, hello. So welcome, everyone. It's so great to see you. My name is Heather Alicia Knox. I live full-time in Mexico with my husband, Greg, who's sitting over there. And we are here in Canada, back in Canada. We're originally from here. So I'm also a digital storytelling facilitator. I work with Mike. You get all the emails coming from me, mostly. My husband and I also teach guided autobiography classes, which is a way of documenting your life through stories, 2 pages at a time. And I'll be here as your MC for the first screening, and I will be introducing your storytellers. And then we will watch their short story, and then I will put it out to you. What resonated with you in that story you watched? It could be a photo, it could be a phrase they said, it could be a little bit of music. And we like to give you that opportunity to share with each other what resonated with you for each of the stories. So following that session, we'll gather up here and talk to our storyteller and our facilitator. So again, welcome. So we're going to start. Let me get to the right page. Our first story is Dan Pubin. And our facilitator happens to be Dr. Mike Lang. And so Dan is going to share about his experience living with ALS and his reflections on fatherhood and in the midst of a terminal illness. So take it away.
I knew it right away as soon as the doctor put Gwen on Kate's chest. We were going to be best buddies. Looking at them, I realized for the first time at 33 what I wanted to do with my life. I had always been a little jealous of people who had a definitive career, a direction and desire to pursue it. I had never found anything. So I had spent a decade with substance abuse issues, working random jobs, until one day I filled out a profile on Plenty of Fish. After sending out dozens of messages, one person wrote me back. A couple months into our relationship, Kate told me that my profile picture was ugly and my profile was boring. But something told her to write me back. On our 4th date, we were sitting by English Bay, and I said, "I am going to tell you something that might be detrimental to what this is, but I am in love with you." She said, "I love you too." 3.5 years later, we were married and living in Calgary when Kate called me crying one evening. She was working in a group home for pregnant teens, and I immediately thought something had happened until she blurted out, "I'm pregnant." The first few months were a blur. There is nothing that prepares you for being a parent, but there were so many little moments of fun. I remember joking that Kate was the lunch truck. I remember taking Gwen out for the first time and feeling so proud. And I remember the first day back at work after that first Christmas when I was laid off. Later that night, talking with Kate, she said, "You have been unhappy for so long, and now you have the opportunity to do something you want to do. Everything will be okay. We have each other." The next few years, I got to spend so much time with Kate and Gwen. So many little moments that they may not remember, but ones that I cherish. When Oscar came, it felt like our little family was complete. Playing in leaves the day he showed up, then in the snow at the playground. Cuddling on the couch watching a movie, knowing there is nowhere else you would rather be. Nothing else you would rather be doing. Being a dad was what I was made for. This last year of my life, I have been able to focus entirely on being a dad. After my ALS diagnosis, I am living my life in dog years. Family trips, adventures with Kate and other friends. Creating lasting memories and spending the time is all that matters. But the memories that I love the most are the little ones. Yesterday I was in the backyard with the kids, having them help me with the fall cleanup. Gwen put the brown bag over her head, and I snuck up and tickled her before I pushing her over and covering her with leaves. They may not have realized in the moment that years down the road, when they are cleaning up leaves in their own backyards, they will remember Leafs fights with their dad. They won't remember how I sounded or that I couldn't open the bag. It was one of those little moments that are actually a very big moment. When I look back on the last 14 years since meeting Kate, I would make all the same choices. All I have ever wanted to do is be a better man for them.
So now is the time. I'd like you to turn to your neighbors and check in with them about what resonates. So again, was it an image that Dan showed? Some of the words he shared? A phrase? So talk quietly amongst yourselves. So Dan and Kate, do you want to? Okay. Leave it while they're getting them up here. Great. I can't. It won't come off. Do you want to try, Mike? Testing. Testing. You're good? Okay. So I've watched your story a couple times, and the words that you used at the end really impacted me about your desire to be a good man. And I think these are really wise words for all of us to live by, to be better human. Can you talk about the experience of making this story with Mike?
Yeah, I don't sound like that.
You don't sound like the AI voice. No.
That was the first story where we used an AI voice.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
It's intriguing.
Yeah, it was just being able to talk about really organically my life and my new perspective that I have, and it came together very easily once I realized that my story revolved around Kate and the kids.
Yeah, it's a powerful story. Have your kids seen the story? No.
I've asked when she wants to watch it, and always a resounding no. But it's there for them when they're ready.
So it's like a legacy message for them. You're really involved in the ALS community, right? Yeah. Do you want to talk about what you're doing, what you're up to?
Sure. I decided very early on that there's no point in hiding or trying to run from what is happening. So I kind of embraced it. I started with sharing my story very openly on Instagram, and then I came up with Dan's Night to Fight, which we actually just had the second one last weekend, and it's just all about getting together at the community, and that's where we can find a lot of our strength and the support of others. We raised a whole bunch of money for ALS Alberta last year. This year, we raised a whole bunch for us so that we can buy a van so I can get around a lot easier. And then there's this with Mike. And then the one I'm most excited about is I was named the ambassador for Side by Side for ALS, the walk in Calgary. And you might know it as Betty's Run, but rebranded this year. So that's coming up as well.
Way to go. Mike, I can imagine it's been,
Amazing, yeah, so amazing, yeah.
I can imagine it's been inspiring working with Dan. Do you want to talk about the process?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Dan and I, here we are, two guys sitting on Dan's couch just bawling, and like there's just these moments, right? Because we're both dads, we both have kids the same age. And I was just telling Dan, actually, around that time is when we found out we're actually having another child, so, and that was a surprise for us. But, just reflecting on that idea of fatherhood, what does that mean? What does that look like? And then also, just the ways in which you're still their dad, right? No matter what is going on in your life, right? And so I love, that conversation that we got to have was really meaningful. And so being a part of, getting to help Dan tell the story. And then, of course, getting to watch it up here with you guys. We've also watched it like this in other situations, too, where we've been able to have conversations. It's just been really meaningful, even though me and Dan have opposite views as far as our sports teams go.
Oh, dear.
We still get along pretty well, I think. So, but, yeah, it's just been, really cool to as a facilitator, right, to learn from the people that you get to work with, right? And I definitely would say that's been the case for Dan.
Can you talk about what it was like using the AI voice for both of you?
Yeah. I mean, we wrote the voiceover, right? And it was really great. And then Dan's like, by the way, I have this AI voiceover app. And I was like, well, what does it sound like? So we put it in there, and it actually sounded pretty good. And yeah, it sounds just like him. And
yeah. I was curious because I watched the streaming when you did the ALS here, right, a couple months ago. How did it know your voice?
About a month after I was diagnosed, Kate got me a voice recorder so that she could always have my voice. And I put about an hour's worth into 11 labs. And it took about 2 hours, and this is what came out. And it sounds a lot more like me than I do now.
Yeah, impressive. And was it a strange feeling for you to hear your voice read your script?
At first, yeah. But I'm used to it now. I would rather listen to that than how I actually do sound. But it is what it is.
Yeah, wow. Christy, do you have any comments or questions online?
Just a couple. Cindy says the small moments together brought the greatest joy. And Nancy said, I feel like he's leaving his kids a huge gift, a legacy. Mm-hmm. And so, friends, if you're on the chat, there's about 80 people. Please feel free to jump in. We will be sharing that back with our storytellers.
Yeah. You know, maybe I would just share really quickly, one of the coolest things about digital storytelling, right, is that when you sit down with someone, you don't know what story they're going to tell, right? And you just sort of go on this journey together. And I think that's such a cool thing. I mean, we don't get to do that too often, even what we're doing right now, where we just turn to the person next to us and share one thing that stood out to us. It's amazing the things that we can learn from each other's lives. And, I learned so much from Dan, and just even now that I follow him, ALS Superman on Instagram, make sure you follow him. It's, you learn so much about someone and their perspective on life, and you can glean wisdom, not just from the story, but from the way that they carry themselves through something difficult like this. And so yeah, I'm still learning, Dan, from your Instagram stories. And also, your Night to Fights looked awesome. I wish I was there. It looked incredible, but yeah.
Well, thank you for making this story and allowing us to see it and witness and understand your story more. Very powerful.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Wow. Thank you. Okay. What's that? Yeah, Kate.
Oh, what do you want to hear?
Kate said she was just the microphone holder, but yes, we do
I know.
need to hear from her.
I wanted to ask, and I'm like, but I didn't get permission.
Oh, yeah, no, go ahead. What would you?
Yeah, what was it like for you when you first saw the story? And you probably have a question too, Dave.
Oh, it broke my heart.
Did it?
But in the best way.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
sweet.
Yeah, no. Dan's always been like that, though. He's always been the most positive and a rock for me. So yeah, just hearing his voice, because I really miss that.
What did you want to ask?
I just wanted to know how this was.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah.
And it's really beautiful. It's a really big gift. So thank you. Yeah. This whole journey has been really difficult. So I always think that I'm okay, and then I actually think about it. I'm like, I don't think I'm okay. But it's just the grief. It's just, yeah.
Takes a lot of strength.
What I have found in the ALS and the grind, Nan and Dale, is really hard, but I could not do what I do and be who I am if it wasn't for her and the way that she had taken over everything. and looking after our kids and our home and our income and me. But as far as I'm concerned, the least important. And that's what I called, agreed with Mike when he called my story A Better Man, because that my last line said that all I've ever wanted to me was better because of her and the kids. So, and as far as I'm concerned, all about her.
I bet. Thank you. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Kate. Thanks, Mike. Wow. What a way to start our event, hey? So our next storyteller the next story is called Human After All. And we have Dr. Marie Hollowaychuk. And our facilitator is Angie Turner. So Marie recounts a mistake made during her veterinarian residency and the lasting impact this had on her practice. So again, watch for what resonates with you.
I still remember Lacey. I was a second-year emergency and critical care resident, running on almost no sleep in a busy ICU at North Carolina State University. It was a Friday afternoon, the kind where everything that could go wrong seemed determined to do so. Lacey, a small dog under the care of another resident, needed a nasal feeding tube. I asked a technician to place it and take an X-ray to confirm placement. The first X-ray looked good, but the tube was kinked. I asked that it be adjusted and re-X-rayed. What I didn't realize in that moment was that the tube was removed and reinserted entirely. When I glanced at the second X-ray, I only checked that the kink was gone and that the tube pointed towards the stomach. I missed that it had actually gone into her trachea. When food was administered, it went into Lacey's lungs, and that night she suffered a cardiopulmonary arrest and died. The radiologist called me the following Monday while reviewing the radiographs from the end of the week and weekend. He said, "The last X-ray shows the tube in the airway." My stomach dropped. Nausea washed over me, and the gut punch realization hit. I had killed Lacey. The aftermath was agonizing. Lacey's owners filed a lawsuit, the Veterinary State Medical Board got involved, and I questioned every decision I had ever made as a veterinarian. For weeks, I was terrified of interpreting X-rays, and for months, I carried guilt that seemed too heavy to bear. I berated myself for being careless, for failing Lacey, her care team, and her family. But over time, I learned that veterinarians make mistakes. Until that moment with Lacey, I had never fully believed that to be true, until my mentor shared that he too had made errors that had led to patient deaths during his career. He urged me to be kinder to myself, to accept that we are human, and to move forward for the sake of our current and future patients. I also learned the importance of honesty with our clients when mistakes happen. Owning the error and offering a sincere apology doesn't just demonstrate integrity, it often prevents additional pain, misunderstanding, or even legal action. Transparency allows clients to understand what happened, to ask questions, and to feel that their pet's care is in capable, accountable hands. Mistakes are also opportunities to learn and improve. After Lacey, the hospital implemented the Lacey Rule. Every feeding tube placement must be confirmed by a board-certified radiologist or radiology resident before any feeding begins. Protocols like this help prevent errors from recurring and create a safer environment for every patient who comes through the door. Above all, what got me through and what continues to guide me today is self-compassion. Acknowledging my grief and guilt without letting it define me allowed me to continue practicing medicine, mentoring interns and residents, and supporting colleagues. Even after 20 years of practice, I still make mistakes. I am not infallible. I am human, and that's okay.
Okay, so while Marie and Angie make their way onto the stage, if you want to turn to your friends and neighbors and share what resonated with you.
Oh.
Oh, it's still going down though. There. Okay. Yes, I mean, it goes online and you know people are going to watch it, but then you watch it and it feels step by step. Do you want me to like remind? Is that more helpful? It wasn't helpful to word things at you?
I think the okay. So thank you for creating that story, both of you, lovely humans. And what really resonated with me is how brave you are to create a story that shares a mistake and that it hasn't defined you. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's I talk about this all the time, and I don't know why. I was just saying to Angie, being in a room with folks who are watching it with me feels very different. And Dan's story, my daughter is turning 6, so very similar age, so that got me emotional. So I'm feeling a little bit emotional in this moment, but it took me a long time to talk about it. Mm-hmm. When it happened, I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't tell my resident mates, my friends. I thought nobody is going to trust me. Nobody's going to want to let me take care of their pets in the ICU. And when my mentor said those words to me, it was almost like somebody kind of smacked me in a good way. And after I finished my residency, I moved into academia and I worked at the Ontario Vet College for 5 years. And I started to see others make mistakes and struggle with it so deeply. And it became so clear to me that we are doing a disservice by not talking about our mistakes more openly. Because I grew up with 2 parents as veterinarians, and despite that, I didn't know until, 4 years, 5 years into being a practicing vet that people made mistakes because nobody talked about it. And so I really tried to emphasize to students and interns and residents and other faculty, colleagues of mine that would share with me their mistakes that, yeah, I've been there, done that. In fact, I've made mistakes that have resulted in patient death, and it doesn't get much worse than that. And you start to see people just have these aha moments, especially students that are just blown away that this is a possibility and that they can look to somebody like me who has been now practicing for 22 years, and I am a successful clinician and I'm a compassionate veterinarian and I love my patients and I would never want to hurt any animal, and yet I'm human and it happens, and it can happen to any of us.
I can imagine that people would throw in the towel after a mistake like that, and that now you being so open about it can make a difference for their path, right? Did you, Angie, when you started working with Marie, did you know what story you both were going to move towards, or tell us how you ended up working together.
So I had created a third-year elective at the Vet College in Saskatoon, and it was using digital storytelling for building resilience in vet students. And so when I started thinking about practicing veterinarians that I could do stories with, that I could bring and share with these students, she was the first name that came up on my list, because I've been following her on social media for quite some time, and she does a lot of work with veterinarians and mental health. And so I thought, her story, which she has shared on her website, I was like, she's perfect for this. So I contacted her and had my fingers crossed, because she's practically famous here, right? So
you have some fans in the audience too.
But so I wasn't sure that she would even bother contacting me back, but she was very excited about it, and so I was thrilled to work with her.
Marie, have you started using this story in any capacity? Can you share how you're using it?
Yeah, I have shared it. It's on YouTube, so anybody can watch it, and I've shared it on LinkedIn, where I have quite a few followers. And I'd written a blog about what happened with Lacey, and I talk about it in my book. I have a whole chapter on mistakes and just how common it is in vet medicine, and how they're usually handled, and how we want to shift the culture of how they're handled, so that it isn't so much focused on the individual, but it's the system around the individual that leads to that. Because, what we didn't unpack in the video is that there was all of these things that led to that mistake happening. It wasn't just that I misread an x-ray. It was that I didn't have oversight from my mentor. It's that the person whose case it belonged to didn't double check. It was that the nurse didn't communicate to me that they had taken the tube all the way out instead of just pulling it out a little bit. So it was a series of things, which is why the Lacey rule is now
And it
intact.
is called Lacey.
It's the Lacey rule
I love
at
that.
NC State. If you talk to anybody who's been through NC State, I run into people all the time at conferences, and they say, I went to NC State, I did my vet school. And when I talk about Lacey, they say, I remember the Lacey rule in fourth year when we went through our feeding tube placement.
And was Lacey a Jack Russell?
Yeah.
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 Wow. Do you have any comments you want to share, Christy?
I do. We have one from Janice, and she just said, we are all human. Thank you, Marie, for sharing your story. What stood out for me in your story was the vulnerability you portrayed. Vulnerability is what makes us all human, and opening ourselves to the limitations of being human is what brings about the most beautiful compassion we humans are capable of.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you.
And how was the process for you making the story? Did you enjoy it? Were you triggered? How was it?
I think I really hold on to this sentiment that it is far more important for me to tell this story and to be vulnerable and to normalize mistakes than to have any embarrassment about what happened. So I really hold on to that, and I was excited to try a different way of storytelling, because I had my first time talking about Lacey was in a blog, and then I talked about it more in my book. I speak a lot about error and self-compassion on stage, and so I have shared it in some situations like that. But to have a voiceover with a video and the pictures that Angie took, I think it's so beautifully put together. So I told Angie I loved the experience, and it is so powerful, like watching Dan's story, and I can't wait to see everybody else's. Like, it's so
It's very
emotion
addictive.
evoking.
Yeah. Do you want to do a little plug for your book?
Oh gosh.
Why not?
I'm
Why
not very
not?
good at this. I wrote a book. It's called A Compassionate Calling, What It Really Means to Be a Veterinarian. And I wrote it to talk about my journey in vet medicine, and also to talk about the challenges that we experience as a profession and the future of veterinary medicine and what that holds. So If you know of anybody who's interested in the profession, if you have pets and you're interested in a behind-the-scenes look at what it's really like, it's not always what people think, and so that's what drew me to writing it.
Way to go! That's a big accomplishment.
Thank you.
Angie, did you want to add any more to how it was doing this story? Because you could talk about your field as well. There's why this is important to you, to give people a sense of who you are. And where do you live?
I'm from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. My day job is at the WCVM, and I'm a technical instructor for necropsy in the pathology lab. And so, yeah, medical mistakes happen on a very regular basis, right? And so, again, this is just something that can be learned from and help many other people. And again, with the resilience class, I just think that mental health is so important in our veterinarians, and so our students coming up, I mean, it may be something small, but anything that we can do to help build up their resilience as they go through. It's a very difficult field to be in. And so
yeah, you shared something with me that I had never heard about the rate of suicide. Yeah, among veterinarians is quite high, is it not?
It is quite high.
Yeah.
I figure, I mean, even just myself, I have 2 people that have died by suicide from that. And so I think if I'm just one person, I can imagine that the numbers are just pretty high up there. So.
And so your hope and dreams are that through digital storytelling and sharing stories, personal stories like Marie's, that you can help build resilience in the field, right?
Absolutely. And I just finished the class, actually, that I was talking about, the elective. And what the students got out of it, regardless of how well I taught it or didn't, the students really... The stories that they put together, first of all, that they were very vulnerable with their stories, which is something that is not typical for veterinarians. Let's start there. They're generally a type A people that don't want to share their feelings. And so the fact that these students were willing to open up about this and share each other's stories and, come together and feel that they're not alone. It was huge, and so hearing the feedback was just amazing for me, and so I greatly appreciated what they did for us.
And Marie, will you be encouraging other vets to share their stories as well?
Absolutely. I've talked about doing failure rounds, like we do what are called M&Ms, morbidity and mortality rounds, not infrequently, especially in academic settings, but it is more medical, and it looks more at what medical decisions were made and what was missed and those types of things. But I think we need to talk more about the human side of our practice and just how layered our days are and how many factors can lead to somebody making a mistake. And then most importantly is the resilience piece, which is how a person recovers. Because as you said, there are individuals who make a mistake and they never practice again, or they'll never do that surgery again or that procedure again. And so talking about it, normalizing it, and giving people strategies to be able to recover and then to help others do the same, I think is incredibly important. We have a lot of attrition in the field, people leaving for various reasons, and we want to keep people in the profession as long as possible.
I have a theory, and I've never had it confirmed. I would imagine that a lot of vets go into the field because they love animals, and then unexpectedly they have to deal with so many humans. And people get emotional when their beloved pet is not well. Is my theory correct?
It's a thing, yes.
I figured. Do you have any more comments you want to share?
Just one, let me find it, from Nancy. The importance of self-forgiveness really stood out for her in your story.
Well, thank you both. Thank you for sharing your incredible story. Thank you, Angie, for making it happen. And
thank you.
So our next storyteller is Anita O'Keefe, and she's going to be coming to us via Zoom. And the story was told by our lovely Natasha Bilao. And so this story, Anita explores the role of photography in healing from infant losses, examining how images can provide comfort and preserve precious memories. So here we go.
Photos have always carried a lot of meaning to me. I remember looking at my parents' wedding pictures and seeing the dates printed on the side. My dad died when I was 17 years old. I held on to photos because it gave me the ability to embrace his memory forever. 4 years after my dad's death, I was expecting my first child. I went into early labor and arrived at the hospital desperate for help. My baby girl, Leah, was stillborn. I was left on the maternity ward all night with no support. I had another baby girl the next year, Julia. She died after 24 hours. I had pictures of both babies to keep their memories forever with me. The trail that I live on houses the hospital where I lost Leah. A 5-minute walk down the trail turns into tears and traumatic memories for me, even after 40 years. The last time I walked the trail, I decided to stop in front of the old maternity ward. Through my tears, I started taking pictures of the hospital and the area that had left me traumatized. I felt a sense of peace and closure after viewing the photos. I was viewing the hospital through my lens. I felt that I was reclaiming my own story of what had happened that day. As I sat at my booth at an art fair, I was surrounded by my photos. I felt a sense of excitement as the possibility of selling my photos became a reality. Reluctantly, I had printed the picture of the maternity ward. I was surprised that it was resonating with others, and it even sold the most copies. I went back to the trail to see how I would feel, and as I looked up at the place that had haunted me for so many years, I saw a piece of greenery growing. Where there was death, darkness, and trauma, now there was life. My lens has changed. I see this place differently now. I have reclaimed this place in my mind and in my photos.
So everyone, welcome Tash. This is a particularly emotional one because Anita not only is her storyteller, she's her mama. Do we have Anita online, Alex? Oh, there she is. Hi, Anita.
Yes.
Welcome.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So I'm going to give you a mic. Thank you.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, sweetie.
Anita,
Wish I was there.
Me too.
We wish you were too. Beautiful story, and I can really relate as a photographer. The image that really struck a chord for me was, I didn't give you guys a chance to reflect. No, sorry.
We just got right into it.
I know. Sorry about that. Oh, I know. So take a moment, talk amongst yourselves, and see what resonated for you. Yeah. Give you a break. Give you a moment. I know. I was so tuned in.
I know, right? Thank you. I think the same image got me. Yeah. And I'm just so proud.
We have some tables that are way more talkative than other tables, I've noticed. So thanks. So Anita, I was really struck with that image. And I'd love to hear what your experience was like working with your beautiful daughter, who I met this morning for the first time, but I've known her on Zoom for many months, a year now.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry, which image?
The image of the plant up on the
yeah.
on the building, very powerful. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it was an incredible experience, actually. It's been very empowering for me. I never got the help back then, so many years ago, that I should have gotten. I'm now a therapist, and I work with people who experience trauma. But I still held on to this for so many years. And it was only until Tash and I did this story that it's been an amazing release. And I feel like I have ownership over this story now. So it makes it a totally different experience. I was telling Tash the other day, I can walk down here now and it doesn't bother me at all. There's no emotion attached to it. There's no crying.
We got some applause for that one, Anita.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing to just have that control over what had happened to me when I was so young.
It's quite surprising what can come about when you think you're just making a little movie, and then all of a sudden things like this, healing and processing happens. Tash, you want to talk about what the experience was like for you? I know you're super proud of your mama.
I am. I'm so proud of her for being vulnerable enough to share this story. And she was my voluntold volunteer for my facilitation training. I had another volunteer back out, and I know I can always count on my mom. So that's how we came to work together. But honestly, it was before my facilitator dropped off. I was kind of hoping it would happen because my mom and I were talking, and just in conversation, this theme came out. And I thought, oh, we have to do a story about this. Like, we have to, because she has been exploring photography for a short period of time. And this, these losses I've known about my entire life. So I've grown up knowing about, my sisters before me, but we never kind of got to a place of healing. It was just carried. So now it's incredible to hear that through this storytelling experience, she was able to gain, healing and move past something that has been, carried for over 40 years. And I just feel so honored that we were able to do this together. And I'm so proud of you.
That's so, I'm very envious of any facilitator that gets to do a story with their parents, because I've lost both of mine. What was it like for you, Anita, working? How do you feel about this amazing girl of yours and working together?
How much time do we have?
It was amazing. It really was. It was an incredible experience. Like Tash said, she'd known about these stories, but doing it together, like making the story together and picking the pictures and everything, just was so incredible. And the photography has been incredible for me. It's been a release. find beauty everywhere, and just take pictures.
I can
So
relate. I can relate.
the,
So were all the photos in the story yours, or?
a lot of them were, yeah.
Like the ones of the hospital, like some of those were stock, but
Yeah.
for the most part, the photos were my mom's, like of all the building ones, the trail, those, a lot of them were
Was it
hers.
hard to pick the photos you wanted to use because you have so many?
Somewhat, yeah. Yeah, I guess it was.
So were you watching and listening to your script and going, oh, I know which photo I want to put in there? Is that how it worked
I
for
think
you?
we
Or did
kind
you
of
have
worked together. We worked on that together because Tash has seen a lot of my photos too. So
We were able to try it and like focus on a theme. So my role was editing.
Yeah. Do you have any comments?
I do. I was just going to interrupt you. There's a few comments in here for Anita. So thank you, Anita. What resonated with me the most was the idea of the circle of life. Where there's death, new life will inevitably arrive in time, and that hope is a powerful tool for anyone facing loss. Another comment was, I think the story is also a memorial and tribute for her babies, showing her continued love for them. And the final one, the tone and warmth of your soft, strong voice struck me as especially resonant to the process of depth and visual healing.
Wow. There you go.
thank you. Wow, thank you.
Anita, who have you shown your story to?
So I have shared it online. I think it is on YouTube as well. I've shared it with my family, some friends,
And what
coworkers.
kind of response have you been getting?
Oh, just incredible, incredible response. And I think I'd like to share it more now. Just hearing these lovely comments too, and actually watching Marie and Dan bravery of telling their stories as well. It seems like we have a theme of grief, which I think is so important to talk about. We don't really get into grief and talking about grief enough, I think, in an open space. So, yeah.
Well, thank you, Anita. Thank you for zooming in with us today. I'm sorry you couldn't be here live. Thank you, Tash, for doing this incredible story with your mom. Thank you.
Love you, Mom. I'll see you in a couple days.
Love you too. All right, sweetie. Love you too. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so story number 4 is David Finch, and his facilitator is Melody Williamson. And David will be sharing his story of caregiving for his wife, Jeannie, and what he learned along the way.
Jeannie's first cancer was in 2002, and her only question for her surgeon was, "Can I go on a wilderness canoe trip with my family?" She did, and canoed for many more years.
You designed it for high quality speed?
In 2018, Jeannie rocked her retirement, her term for the time after her diagnosis with terminal brain cancer. "There are many ways to do this well," was one of her mantras. She continued passionate pursuits. We loved reading. Grandson John, 7 years old, read kids' stories to her in a real-life version of the Robert Munch book, I'll Love You Forever. Another book we loved was The Second Half of Life, Entering the 8 Gates of Wisdom. It says that as we go through the final passage, the Gold Gate, we can accept the death of our bodies, give up control, and turn to the numinous light, the spiritual brilliance that infuses everything. A place of perfect rest, acceptance. Passing through the Gold Gate, Jeannie relied more and more on others. Our daughter Annie moved home and helped care for Jeannie and tend to her flower gardens. The medical community was amazing. People at Wellspring and Hospice Calgary underpinned us with loving care too. But someone had to coordinate everything. That was me, David Finch. Caregiver, sweetie, best friend, and husband. But one day while painting, I hit the wall. The end for Jeannie was just weeks away, but after 2 years, I was done. Exhausted. Wanted to quit. I hated myself for falling apart, but felt guilty for taking even an hour for myself. Desperate, I opened a book by Gabor Mate and grabbed hold of his wisdom. Caregivers who struggle with self-care can either feel a bit guilty if they care for themselves, or resentful of the person in their care if they don't. Gabor says the guilt will pass, but resentment can last a lifetime. So I took care of myself, opened my hands. Every afternoon at 5, Jeannie called out, "Rum time," and we served her Caribbean rum on slivered ice. In the end, it worked out fine. With laughter and tears, arguments and hugs, silly jokes too, lots of naps. Jeannie Finch died a good death at home, holding hands with our daughter and me. Almost 5 years later, we miss Jeannie dearly, treasure the memories of life with her, and value her wisdom.
Hey, don't come out.
Yes, Jeannie, you are right. There are many ways to do this well.
Okay, David and Melody, while you're coming up on the stage, if everyone wants to take a few minutes to share what resonated with you, with your cohorts. I just wait until it gets quieter and quieter. That's quite the story. What I'm struck with is just what it takes to be a caregiver. Do you want to start with that? What it was? You shared a lot in the story. How long has it been?
It's been 5 years.
And when did you do the story with Melody?
Last year.
Last year.
Yeah.
So, what was caregiving like? What did it mean for you?
Well, you're right, there's a lot in the video. Jeannie's first cancer was in 2002, and then it was a different kind of cancer, and she sailed through that. We literally went canoeing between her breast cancer surgery and her chemo. Like she said to her surgeon said, "Do you have any questions?" She said, "Yeah, can I go canoeing?" That's the kind of woman Jeannie was. And then in 2018, when she got the GBM brain cancer, the first idea was that it was a return of the breast cancer, but it was completely different. And so the arc of the story was very different. So my kid sister had died in 2000 of non-Hodgkin's lymphatic cancer, and then Jeannie got her first cancer in 2002, and I have other friends who have died of cancer. So for me, it's like, okay, this is part of my life. Of course, being a caregiver to your spouse, your best friend. Jeannie and I were married when we were babies, 22 and 23, and our daughter and our grandson in the video were both right involved right through the whole thing. I helped when I was writing the script for this, I was helping my grandson do his homework, and he said, he's writing an essay, and I said, print it out, so I scribbled all over it with red pen and made him go fix it. Then I showed him this script. He says, Grandpa, print that out. So here he is, and he takes the red pen, and he actually made the script better.
Edit. Oh, great. Yep. Do you want to talk about the music in your video? Because it's a unique story behind that.
Yeah, it is. That's played on a Appalachian Mountain dulcimer like Joni Mitchell played. Her song California and so on. And it happens to be one of the musical instruments in our music and art room. And after I crafted the script with Melody and the team of women that were part of our little cadre, they made me tell this story, because this really was the story. It was going to just be all about Jeannie, but the caregiver story is really, really deeply, profoundly important and often missed. And so thank you. After the script was done, after I'd put in all the imagery, and all the imagery is from our family, like every single bit of it. And then I don't know, I grabbed the dulcimer off the wall and tuned it up, and then I just started playing. And then I just pushed the record, and that was the one and only recording that I did. It just fit. And then I brought it to session, and I said to Melody, tell me if it's a piece of shit. But she said, no, it fits.
Did you both work on the story live together? Were you in the... Yeah, it was in person, yeah.
But I rolled the imagery while I actually played the dulcimer, and so it, the part there where I said I hit the wall and I just banged on the strings, because that's what it felt like. I felt like I was at the end of my life. I could not go on, even though Jeannie, after 24 months, I'm done. I'm just completely wiped out.
Yeah, it does. It makes your story more powerful in an interesting way. Melly, can you talk about your work at Wellspring and how you came to work with David?
Absolutely. Wellspring is like a holistic healing center for people on a journey with cancer and their caregivers and their families. And David, I think you've done many programs at Wellspring. And, it's amazing how we talk about there's a time to tell a story. And, this was 4 years later, but that was the time, right? And it's great that Wellspring was supportive of this, that you can come back at that point when you're ready to do this. And so we had a wonderful group of people. I love every time there is a workshop. There's something magical about that. And you'd agree, David, it was quite a special group. These people were...
I've never been hugged so much in my life.
Yeah. Yes, we had many, many hugs. And people came in of all ages. We had quite an age range in this particular group. And cultures, ethnicities, backgrounds, people that in life, I don't think there would have been another situation where we probably would have crossed paths. But it's amazing, and even leading up to today, because this is in the afternoon, but everyone in that program sent a little note to David that they wish they could be here. They're so close. They keep in touch. They're going to get together and have a dinner. This is the pebble in the pond, right? Yeah. They would have never got to cross paths.
Beautiful.
But I also wanted to mention, building on I thought it was beautiful. Like when David told me about his own sort of soundscape, I was just thrilled, because I love the fact that you just organically found the music to match the crescendos and the feelings and what was going on in his piece, which was absolutely beautiful. But the other piece I want to mention is that David's also a visual artist. You notice that art room, right? And so it was really a wonderful experience as we co-created together. And David kept bringing in his own art in different ways, whether it was the music, whether it was visually. And that was a really wonderful process for me. Lots of people at Wellspring, it tends to be that they've done different classes, and you will get people that use their own art that they've done in a class. But this was really special. I just have to say this too, as a man, and everybody in the group said this, David, this is not news to you, but they were just so thrilled to have a man sort of modeling that, yes, we can be open with our feelings, and you can be creative and bring in all the different aspects of who you are into this story. You really went for it on all levels. And as you can see in the story, it has that kind of impact.
Yeah. Christy, do you got anything to share with us?
I just wanted to share something a little quickly. So when I was writing the script, I made all the women in the group just bawl when I talked about John. So Jeannie, at the end of her life, lost the sight on the left side of both eyes. So John really was reading grandma stories, just like we all know the Robert Munch book, right? I'll love you forever. I'd like you for always, as long as you're living, my baby you'll be. So when I read the script, they were all bawling, and I'm thinking, oh my God, how am I going to fix that? So then we put in this little video where John turns the page and he says, "That pig!" So it's kind of like a sweet and sour, all at once.
There are a few comments on here. So one of them was, the images were gorgeous and really illuminated the strong bonds between this family. Thank you for your courage, David, in sharing this personal story of love. It's from Carolyn. Another one, the image of Jeannie opening her arms to the sun is so moving. And she said, at least I assume it's her in the photo. Yep, we got a thumbs up. And finally, caregiving is the hardest job a person can do. Thank you, David, for sharing your story. What struck me about your story was the impact that your wife's words have had on you and your family. Her legacy is empowerment and living your life on your terms, no matter the circumstances.
Wow, beautifully said. So how have you been sharing your story, and with who have you been sharing it?
All the usual ways, like people who know me and who knew Jeannie, they just gobble it up. And Jeannie and I were part of a church community, Hillhurst United Church here in Calgary, and we lived this very openly in front of them. Jeannie had a beautiful opera singing voice, and so even when she wasn't performing, you could hear her. She had a blog. So she got her cancer diagnosis in summer of 2018. She died in August of 2020. So the end was during COVID. So then she had a blog, and she'd keep people informed of what was going on. And I mean, she just loved embarrassing me. Like, I came home from the store with a box of adult pads, you know what the euphemism is, adult diapers. And I told her that these are really neat. I can even wear them under my jeans. And she put that in her blog. So like 500 people knew that I had tried on her adult diaper. It was just,
my.
I know. So what was your question again?
Oh, I asked where you had been sharing your story.
Okay, so like that. So through the church, because we had and then of course with all relatives and friends. And then a woman just dropped in a couple of weeks ago to visit me, who's been diagnosed with cancer, and she knew Jeannie, and I told her about this, and she sat down and she watched it, and then she watched it again and she cried. She's of course very afraid of what's going to happen, but she knew Jeannie's wisdom and her determination. Jeannie's first cancer was breast cancer, and she did all the stuff that most women do, because most women survive that one. But with the GBM brain cancer, she said, okay, I'm going to rock my retirement. She went cross-country skiing and hiking and canoeing and kayaking, and went on 2 holidays with her sisters. She said, let's rock this retirement. We were married on the 21st of December, so before she got this diagnosis, we went out 21st of December to celebrate our anniversary. As soon as we got the diagnosis, we went out on the 21st of every month, dressed up to the nines, went to all the fancy restaurants in Calgary. It's like, we're doing this. So the fact that we just lived it out, quite by accident, then has meant that people come to me. And so this friend from Canmore, she came to me to find out what she could learn. And especially with GBM, who knows what's going to happen, and as with many other diseases, but Jeannie's statement there are many ways to do this well. I hope that's encouraging.
Yeah, it's very encouraging. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Just Heather, what struck me just right in the moment here, what I also love about digital storytelling is how we connect the stories. And as you were talking right there, that made me think of your story again and, making the most of every moment. And then also what really struck me in your story, which I think is important for caregivers, and what resonated with the veterinary story, is this idea that let's say it out loud that the caregiver can hit the wall. Then that's okay. I mean, we've got to acknowledge that, right? Because I think caregivers feel this pressure to be the one that's always, rock solid, and we can't let our guard down for a second. But I love the way you took us there unabashedly to say that happened, and here's what you did, and then that allowed you to move forward. And I think it's really important.
And I can imagine any other caregiver watching that breathes a sigh of relief. And we have to wind it up.
When I took that overnight canoe trip by myself to take care of myself, my goddamn kids back at Calgary did not feed my wife. She texted me on the river and said, they're not feeding me. Oh, dear. So
we have to train the caretakers backups. So that's the takeaway. So thank you, David. Thank you, Melody.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Do you have any more comments? Yeah. While you're stepping off stage, Christy.
So yeah, there's just one comment from Teresa, who's one of our digital storytelling facilitators, and she said, the music resonated with me as I also play the dulcimer, which originated here in Virginia. She said, also hitting the wall is real.
And my hubby plays the dulcimer too, so I was like, guess what? There's a dulcimer. So, yeah, thank you guys. I'm just blown away with the stories. I know I get super excited. It never gets old for me because it is really sharing the human experience together. So our next story is called When Words Fade. It's another story of a caregiver. It's Linda Wiebe, and our facilitator is Jen Saran. So this When Words Fade follows the journey of Linda and Herb as they navigate a diagnosis of Lewy body dementia and early onset Alzheimer's.
Herb was my love at first sight. His eyes had a way of making me feel so seen, loved, and treasured. His love for life was evident in his contagious laugh that was an invitation to joy. And he was always loaded with a good joke or silly impression. People were naturally drawn to him. We were too poor for grand adventures, so our dates were long, deep conversations about anything you can imagine. At just 18 and 20, when we got married, many thought our love wouldn't last, but we ended up proving them wrong again and again. Words built a nest of safety for us, weaving strength into our relationship as we grew our family and navigated life's changes together. Nothing can prepare you for some of the changes that life can bring. And Herb's diagnosis of Alzheimer's and Lewy body dementia was a devastating blow. That safe nest of words was challenged as his condition slowly shifted the pillar of his personality. His strength remained, but sudden angry flares and confusion became more frequent. His determination to be a strong leader and helper added another layer of challenge. These changes created safety concerns for me as I tried to care for him at home as long as possible. Watching the man I loved, full of life and purpose, struggle to find the anchors for his mind was heartbreaking. Communication became challenging as he began to lose the ability to express himself, and his mind would drift off mid-conversation. At times, he would look to me to fill in a partial thought, leaning on our shared experiences to help him find his words. His confusion and frustration were evident on his face. As words faded, he became highly sensitive to tone. I had to adjust how I communicated meeting him in this new space. Isolation is a common companion of this disease, and the loss of shared words deepened it. How do you talk to someone when words fade? How do you connect with someone who has lost the story, the point, the main character? I learned a different way to speak. I used short sentences and a calm, friendly tone. I used photos to prompt memories, a favorite for her. Gentle touch soothed and helped him regulate the sometimes volcanic emotions. Eye contact, a smile, laughter, and a positive tone allowed us to communicate when words alone no longer worked. As Herb's life faded, these moments of gentle touch were life-giving to both of us. He loved when I stroked his face while talking with him. On the last day he was responsive. He reached up and held my face. No words were needed. When words fade, touch fills the void. In that space, love is felt, no words required.
So, thank you, Jen. Awesome story. So take a few minutes, talk to your neighbors. Jen, come on up when you're ready. And then we're going to have Linda come in via Zoom as well. Great. Alex, do we have Linda on the line? Hi, Linda.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Where are you calling us from?
Steinbach, Manitoba.
Great. Beautiful story. What I was struck with was how much you packed into that. I've been working with individuals with cognitive changes, dementia, Alzheimer's, and you covered a lot of really important pieces in that story, so way to go. Could you talk about the experience of creating this digital story with Jen, what it was like for you?
Oh my goodness, it was amazing. Jen had actually approached me probably a year earlier, but I wasn't ready. And then I was asked to speak at the Manitoba Alzheimer's board meeting, and I talked to her again, and she said, we could get this ready for that. And so that was our goal. And You know, she was just so spot on. We worked on it one evening, and then we worked on it another morning together, and then the rest she did all on her own. So I think we started on a Thursday or a Friday. Jen will have to correct me on that, but the meeting was in Winnipeg on a Tuesday or Wednesday, and I had it there, and I got to show it.
That's a record. There you go. That's record
It
time.
was, and I don't think we had to do very much editing. She did amazing.
I listened to your interview with Lisa Jaworski on her podcast, Capturing Essence, and was really struck by the life you and Herb lived together. There were lots of stuff before the Lewy body came into the scene, right?
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about, just a quick overview, because it's pretty interesting.
Well, we were missionaries, so we got married young, and just he had this passion for serving others, and we went into missions when we were in our 20s. We went to school first. You know, it was just a life of adventure. He just never said no to very much. In fact, I feel like he just embraced every moment. Like he just lived life to the full. He didn't like to sit around and do nothing, and he loved people and being engaged. Like his friends, if you saw on those pictures, he had a core group of friends that showed up like multiple times a week to have coffee and sit with him, whether he could, you know, if they visited with each other. But because of the way he poured himself into other people, they were there for him. And that, to me, is a huge sign of just how much he cared for others.
He sounds like an amazing human. I loved how you had those photos showing of Herb's life. That really gave me a sense of who he was. Tell us how that came to be. And did Linda have so many photos? You were
kind
of
a little bit.
Yeah, okay.
When we were working on stuff in, like as she mentioned, we did it in a fairly short amount of time. So she had done a lot of work on collecting pictures. And, you know, I have to say, though, we made the story in a short amount of time, but that story had been discussed over the course of that year that we had been talking about it. And Linda and I had many coffees together, and just hearing her heart for her husband and her heart in the struggle and the challenges of caregiving for him, and in the slow goodbye that she was experiencing. I got to know a lot of like the story behind the story, and that process, making it easy to put it together in a short amount of time for that meeting. But yeah, she had so many pictures, and there were so many more, and they were so many great pictures that gave a really great look into their life and the joy that they have. I didn't know Herb very long before he was diagnosed, but you could definitely tell if you're anywhere near Herb and Linda that their love was just something really unique. They shared a really neat relationship, and so I wanted to give space to show that. So those pictures were just kind of a way to try to stack a bit of a life into a few seconds worth of film.
I think they really add to it. How was your story received when you went to that event?
It was amazing. I was actually very surprised at how emotionally invested everybody was that watched it. And then the responses after, there was a pause because people had to collect their emotions together. And it was received so well because when you're sitting on a board, I also sit on a board for something else, you often don't have that direct connection to the people that you're representing. And so I think it just brought the humanity and the struggle into that boardroom in a sense where they were very moved by it, even though some of them had had parents go through this, hearing it from a spouse and you know, being the caregiver for him for years by myself before I got self and family managed care. It helped them to realize that I think one of the hardest things is is that it takes so long to get an official diagnosis. And until then, there's no support for the caregiver in this situation. And Manitoba only has one PET scan in Winnipeg, and there's a lot of other things that our provinces could use more of to be able to have the accessibility for people to get diagnosed quicker. And then also another issue is like the long wait for personal care homes. That is, I'm on the Haven Group board, and we are addressing that all the time. Like the wait lists are long, and yet this year, since January, we've lost 18 residents there. And so like the turnover, there's a lot of turnover, but there's still a very long wait. So the last while that I had Herb at home, it was very, very difficult. And I think that kind of came out a little bit in our story. And when it was shared at the board meeting, then they asked a lot of questions about it. And then I could get more in depth about it. And I think the awareness of the delay in getting people into care homes, how that affects the entire family. And just like cancer or anytime there's a disease, it affects the whole family, right?
Of course, yeah. Well, do you have any comments for us?
I sure do. One of them was Alzheimer's is such a master thief, but you weren't going to let it steal everything. Beautiful, from Nancy. Another amazing caregiver. Thank you for sharing your story, Linda. Touch fills the void was such a powerful sentence and incredibly apropos. And finally, a difficult story beautifully told. Thank you, Linda, for sharing the important message that dementia cannot destroy love.
And Linda, it sounds like your caregiver role has evolved into continuing work in the area.
Well, I'm on the Haven Group board, and so I really enjoy that. I also volunteer at the care home. I started in October of last year, and that has been a good experience because I love the staff, and it's a way to stay connected, and it also helps me to be a better advocate on the board.
Oh, good for you. Jen?
Yeah, I want to add a thought to that. Herb and Linda are people who have always served and loved on the people around them. And one thing that I really love about their story and Linda's story that she shared today is that doesn't change when life changes. Like they stayed true to who they were as people, even in the midst of a diagnosis. And so Herb and Linda had conversations very early on before he was having too many deficits on what that would look like for sharing information. And so she started advocating very early on and had a Facebook page that people could follow what was going on. And Herb was all on board because he just wanted people to be helped and not to feel alone if they were going through something similar. And that gave us such freedom in even creating the story, and was part of why it was worded the way it was too, as to provide hope for other people who are going through that and that sort of support. So it's really neat to see like that remembrance of whatever happens, because we don't know what life brings, that we can still be authentically who we are in the midst of all of those stages, as we've heard from some other stories today too.
Are you encouraging other people to talk to Jen about doing a story?
Oh my goodness, I think I would probably be her biggest advocate because she, like you said, you heard the podcast with Lisa. She also had me talk to another gentleman named Pedro Wolf. She's getting my story out for me more than I am. And she's been my advocate in such an incredible way. And I think I'm a visual learner. And so visual helps like this to be able to actually have that much content in 4 minutes is pretty amazing.
It's amazing what you can pack in there, isn't it? Yeah. What was it like when you watched your story for the first time, when it was all complete, because it was done in such a short period of time?
First of all, I was just so happy with how it turned out. And then I just did a lot of crying. A lot of crying.
Very cathartic, can't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I think doing this actually has helped my healing process because grief kicks butt.
Grief is tough, yeah. Well, thank you, Linda, for sharing this story with all of us here and everyone else who gets to watch it. I don't think you'll fully know the ripple effect that it's having on those that watch it. So way to go, and way to go,
Thank
Jan.
you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Oh my goodness, we're already on our last story for this screening. Let me go to... So our final story for the afternoon is The Long Way Home. And our storyteller is Colin Peters, and Mike is our facilitator. And this is Colin's story, his lived experience with PTSD from his time in the military. And he explores the critical role of family support throughout the journey. So again, listen to what resonates for you.
When I left the military, I didn't just leave a job. I left the way of life, the structure, the hypervigilance, the camaraderie, the sense of purpose. It all disappeared at once. When I came home, my family expected me to be back, but I wasn't. Not yet. For the first couple years, I was still in the military. My body would tense before my mind caught up. A tone felt sharp, a look felt loaded. I didn't stop to think. I shut the moment down with anger or silence. That pattern didn't come out of nowhere. It was built in environments where staying alert mattered, where reacting fast kept you functioning. It helped me survive unpredictability, but it didn't belong in my house. It didn't serve the people I love. My voice changed. The room went quiet. The people around me pulled back just a little. They weren't doing anything wrong. They were just the ones closest when it happened. In the beginning, I was on different medications, trying to find my footing, trying to quiet my mind, trying to make it through the day. Some of them took the edge off, but I began to realize that they also took me with it. Maybe I wasn't angry, but I wasn't present either. My kids would talk, and I'd nod, but it felt like there was a wall between us. My spouse would sit next to me, and I could feel the space even though we were inches apart. I wasn't reacting anymore. I just wasn't really there. And I could see that absence had a cost too. I realized that my family didn't just need someone who was calm. They need someone who's engaged, someone who listened, noticed, and responded. I could see that my family felt that distance. They saw me at the table, but not fully present. They carried the weight of my silence and the moments I couldn't show up the way they deserved. One night I had some thoughts that scared me. As I sat there, I thought about how things couldn't stay the same. I had to do something different. I didn't know where to start, but I decided to go to a treatment program. At the program, we worked out every day, and it reminded me how fit I had been when I served. I wanted that again. Coming home, I began to build a gym in my garage. I also started looking back at my childhood and realized how the military had allowed me to ignore all the things that were in my past. I realized the real work of my life, the hardest work, would have been finding my way back to my family. Learning how to be present again, learning how to feel again. I was ready to put in that effort. Then slowly I started to feel myself come back. I could actually hear what was being said instead of bracing for it. I could stay in conversations with checking out or shutting down. I could be calm and present at the same time, and actually responding became possible. Pausing instead of snapping, staying curious instead of defensive, remembering that this moment isn't dangerous, it's just a little uncomfortable. I still slip in old patterns every once in a while, but now I know the difference between being quiet and being connected. I'm still healing, still learning, still rebuilding. I will always come back to my family. They're why I am here, and that matters.
Wow. Another one with lots packed in there. So take a few minutes and Mike and Colin.
Is it over behind the other thing? I can't tell. Okay. Give him a minute. It hasn't been very long. Let him talk. Give him a minute. They just. Maybe we'll tell the facilitators in the evening what's up. Like to get something just in the evening, like future. The Jessica one. This is a pretty quiet. That's a really.
Putting your touch on it. Yeah. Hear what people say online.
And it's 3:42 now, so it's probably it's 3:42.
Okay. Wow, Colin, what a story.
Thank you.
As I mentioned earlier, one of the things I was struck with, what a gorgeous family, eh? Oh my goodness. And I felt your end bit just stunning. Some of your lines were just like a beautiful poem. This moment isn't dangerous. It's just a little uncomfortable. The difference between quiet and connected. It was so eloquent, beautifully done. Do you want to talk about what it was like for you to make this story with Mike?
Just the couple Zoom meetings leading up to do the actual thing where I had to like make notes and stuff like that. It was challenging. Yeah, it was very challenging, but it was also rewarding being able to put it on paper, which was nice too. It's kind of like journaling in a way, but just getting the thoughts out there and then leaving yourself be vulnerable and then having experts help you out. An organization like Atlas giving me the opportunity to go to Calgary and do it, which was really cool too.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us about Atlas, one of the two of you, and how the storytelling happens with Atlas?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I love about Atlas is that they invest in people and their stories, right? And these are not, the stories that we tell are not easy stories. They're probably the hardest stories you could ever tell. But they do it in a way that shows how valuable and meaningful it is. And so we fly people from around the country. We all go to a retreat center. We're there for 2.5 days. We have so much fun, and despite the fact that we're telling very difficult stories. We sit around at night and just shoot the breeze. And there's a very fun little story about something called dragon fire that me and Colin got to experience in rural Alberta. You can ask us about it later.
Okay.
It's just, there's this community that's developed, right? And we just really enjoy each other's company while we work on the stories. And so I love that Atlas, invests so much in the storytellers. They really value what people like Colin are doing by
and what is the
about
mission of Atlas?
to support veterans and family caregivers who've experienced some sort of operational stress injury from
and they are all over Canada, or
they're based in Ottawa, I think, but they're sort of connected all across the country and all over the place. Yeah.
So what was it like when your wife watched the story for the first time?
It was tough.
You do. You got this.
Living with a veteran with operational stress injuries like PTSD is tough because we're hard to be around. And it takes family, caregivers. That are there for us to help us get through the tough times. If I didn't have my family, who knows where I'd be right now. Sorry.
No, it's totally fine. You're in a safe space, and we're really grateful that you're willing to share this story with us and to come on the stage and talk to us. So share what you want. Yeah, I won't push you.
It's tough. I mean, I only just sent the links to the video to my kids like a couple days ago before I came.
Yeah, tell us how old your kids are now.
Well, I have 5 children. I have a 33-year-old. At home, we have 19, 18, 16-year-old girls, and a 13-year-old boy.
And 3 German Shepherds.
And 3 German Shepherds.
They're beautiful dogs.
Thank
yeah.
you.
What are their names?
Boris, Klaus, and Hansel.
Oh, love it.
Yeah.
Love it. So what was the response when the kids watched the video? Have they shared with you?
Not yet. No.
Not yet.
No.
Have you seen them since they saw it?
Not yet.
Oh my goodness. So this is big stuff unfolding.
Yes.
Wow. Very emotional. Mike, do you want to talk more about your process with Colin, and was it easy to get the story? Did you?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it was. I mean, one of the things is we meet a couple times before we show up in person. And so people are working on their stories. They have a few weeks to reflect on their stories. And like Colin said, there's a lot of writing and journaling. There's the stories, it's a winding road to get to the story that you want to tell, right? And I think, the metaphor, the long way home, right, is a great one to represent what it's like for many veterans. Like you get home, right, but you're not home. And I think that was something that came out in our conversation with the other veterans that were there. But then Colin's story, it just really sort of, you could see it crystallize as we were having these conversations, and sending drafts back and forth before he showed up. It's, that metaphor of, being home but not being home, and how that can take time. And you need family. Like you literally need the family, And I think it's amazing. There's so many things behind the scenes in Colin's story, like the pottery. Right, that's something that they created a pottery studio where they bring veterans in and they get them using their hands, being tactile, and and then of course when you're doing things, it's easier to talk about things, right? And there's so many things underneath the surface. I would say that Colin hints at in the story that we can't even get to because there's so much there, right? And I think a lot, for his military service, right? There's so many things that veterans can't fully explain to people who haven't experienced them. I mean, every one of these medals is a story, right? It's an experience that you come home from at some point, even though it takes you a long time to get home from that experience, right? So I think it's it's a beautiful way to represent the realities of coming home from a conflict.
Yeah, I get the feeling you could pause at any point in that story on a photo and just open up another whole storyline that could go with it.
Not to mention the effect it has on your family. You're used to doing your own thing for, say, we go away for 6 months. Mm-hmm. We come home, we're used to what we were doing for 6 months, then you're back making them start all over again. And that's not fair to them either. And that causes, that doesn't help the transition, when you're coming back from overseas and that. But I mean, having a strong family or caregivers, you work together and you try to get through it, and you're like, no, we don't do that here anymore.
Do you feel like an outsider when you first get there?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, you feel very outside because you have to get yourself back into that system.
Christy?
Yeah, so one of the comments was, thank you for sharing, Colin. Your story reminds me of the struggles that so many people face in today's world of constant conflict and dissociation. Recognizing your life's anchor and teaching yourself how to navigate toward that anchor in a world that regularly throws obstacles in our way is imperative. You have a beautiful family, and I'm so glad you were able to find your way back to them and back to yourself, a new version of yourself, but a version you can be so proud of.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Do you want to respond to that beautiful comment?
There's not much more to be said than what the person said.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
I appreciate the kind words.
Yeah, and I was really struck at the end of your story with the words that you shared quietly, because they were written. Was that a hard?
That was extremely difficult doing.
Was
that.
it? Yeah.
But I felt it had to be there, because we don't always say thank you, because we get too caught up in ourselves. So putting on paper or on screen, they can see it and they know that I do care. Sometimes I just don't show it.
Yeah. What was that comment you said with you could be really inches away from your wife, but you could feel the gap was that so great? I think that was another very strong phrasing that really set the tone. Yeah.
It's difficult. I mean, the pressure that's put on the caregiver and your family, because they have to learn how to deal with you, like deal with, anger outbursts or, not wanting to be around, go hiding in my room, go sleep in the closet with the lights out, so it's tough.
Have you shared it with individuals that you were out?
No, I never shared it with anybody I was overseas with, no.
Oh, you haven't? No. Would you?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, one day I'll probably post it, like after it goes through Atlas, because they already looked at it through internally. Then they're going to post it on their site. So once it's released, I'll probably put it on social media and just say, "Hey guys,
So this is fairly new.
Oh, I only did it in January.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So this is your first screening of it?
Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
Heather, can I just jump in as well for a second? There's just another comment, and it's from Carolyn, and she said, I've never known a service member, and am deeply struck by the incredible cost paid by these courageous individuals and by their families. Thank you for sharing this beautiful and hopeful glimpse inside your experience. Wishing you ongoing healing. Colin.
One of the other things that Common Language does is we do online screenings 4 times a year. We call them kitchen table nights. Because stories used to be told around the table. And we did one in March with another Atlas person, and I'm forgetting her name, but it was a spouse of, who was it? No. But it was so eye-opening for those of us who've not been connected with anyone in the service to know what it takes. It was yours? Oh, Kathleen. It was Kathleen. Yeah, I was trying to remember your name. You're here. Your story really struck me. So thank you for being here. And it really opened, everyone online was really struck by what it's like for you day to day and what it was like for your family. So I'm so glad you're here, because these stories, both your stories, have really impacted me. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mike, do you want to say anything else?
One of the things that, there's so much to these stories, right? Like if you really wanted to tell the story, you would need hours and hours of footage, and one of the things I love about doing this as a retreat, right, is you get to hear all the things behind the scenes, and, getting to hear a little bit about Colin's wife and the way that she was an advocate for him, right? And, we've been talking a bit about caregivers today, right? And having her be an advocate, for his well-being, I think is something that you can't underestimate, right? And it's easy, to not understand all the behind-the-scenes stuff from the story, right? You see it in the faces, right? And you see these experiences represented, sort of. But what I love about Colin's stories, there's so many layers
to it, and it starts a conversation. And I think probably with a lot of veterans, right? When you choose, this could start conversations with a lot of people that probably need to talk about some of this stuff.
I
right?
agree. Yeah, really powerful. So thank you again for being so vulnerable with us and for being willing to share your story for the first time publicly like this. What an honor for all of us in the room.
Thank you.
So do you want to? Thanks, Phil. He's going to close it.
Just need a minute to recover here. Wow. Well, thank you guys for being here, being a part of this conversation. Online, for friends coming across the country to support each other, for the family that's here, to support each other. Usually I am up here, right? So I don't actually get to sit and watch the stories. It's a different way. I just got to sit there and think about the things that I was learning. And so I just wanted to share really quickly, just to wrap us up here, some of the things I took away, because I think there's so many pieces of wisdom, deep pieces of wisdom in these stories that struck me. And the first one, for Dan, just the idea of a story being a legacy piece, right? And it's someday, we're sitting up here, and as you guys were chatting, and we're saying, kids haven't seen it yet, but someday. And we just know that someday that story is going to be an amazing thing for them to get to watch, right? And to remember what mattered to their dad. In the same way, I think that Collins, right, will probably do that same thing, right? Someday, your kids will sort of recognize, wow, this is what my dad was all about. And we were the people, whether we realize it or not right now as teenagers, right? Right now, our parents aren't that interesting, let's be honest, right, as a teenager. But at some point, right, they will recognize, that they were part of the family that brought you back home, right? And, from Marie's story, I loved it. I loved your story. And just the idea that, how do people recover from a mistake, right? And I think it starts by telling the story, right? By talking about it, not the medical, this happened, then this happened, then this happened, this tube, this, that thing. Like you talked about, what is it called again? The M&E rounds? Yeah, M&M rounds, morbidity, mortality rounds. I mean, that's the logistics of what happened, right? But how do you actually recover from a mistake like that? You need to tell the story, right? And you told the story, and you're going to be encouraging other people to tell the story because of that, right? And I think that's an amazing thing, amazing gift that you can give others is people respond to a story with a story, right? And I bet you every veterinarian that you guys share that with will have a story like that, and I think that's amazing. I think for Anita, I was thinking about how, sometimes knowing when to tell the story takes time, right? And 40 years later, certain times, right, where the story is ready to be told. And it's not like we need to go out and start telling the most important stories of our life. Sometimes it takes 40 years. But when it's time, just being willing to step into that space, tell that story, it's an amazing gift, right, for her daughter. Right, and for you guys together to have that experience. And then for David, I love how David's story just brought all these different pieces of his life together into a single sort of collision, right? The caregiving, the artworks, the music, the canoeing. I love the canoeing because I know every single shot on that river, the bow, I just love. I spent a lot of time on the river and I connected so deeply with that ability to get away for a day and how healing that can be to spend time on the river. But I just love how digital storytelling allows you to integrate all these different pieces of your life together in a single place, and I think you did that such a beautiful way. And, and then finally, I think, thinking about Linda's story, that she talks about that look, touch, and tone. Right? And how do you communicate something like look and touch and tone to someone else? How do you do that in a story? Well, I think you use the images, the music, the photo of her lying on the bed, right? That sort of tells so much more than the words ever would, right? And so I think it's amazing, the ways that everyone has chosen to tell their stories, that is so uniquely them, and yet has all these different lessons for us as people who have our own stories, right? And can now step out into the world carrying these stories with us. I think that's pretty cool. So thank you all for being here. It's not easy, but it's good, right? And I think I'm feeling that right now. I'm I get this from my dad. My dad's right there. He cries at like Hallmark commercials and stuff like that. So I come by it honestly, but I just love that idea. That it's not easy sometimes to tell the difficult stories in our lives, but it's good. So hopefully that's an encouragement for everyone here. We don't know what those stories are, right? We don't know when and where and how you may tell them, but there is a time, there is a place, there is a way that those stories can be shared to help others, just like you've seen here this afternoon. So thank you all for being here. I'll pass it over to Heather. I think, all right, wait, I'm wrapping us up right now. And we have another screening this evening. We have probably a few spots left. I think it's starting to fill up. A lot of people are going to be coming to that one. But if you're ready for 6 more stories, we'd love to have you back. And with a big break in between, yes. But yeah, thank you for being a part of this. If you're interested in doing more storytelling stuff, there was about 50 people who submitted digital stories to this film festival, and we could only accept 12. But everyone else who submitted a story, 4 times a year, we do something called Kitchen Table Nights, which Heather mentioned. You will get a follow-up email from this with a link. If you want to come and be a part of a group like this online, there's 20 or 30 of us. We get together, we watch stories, we talk to the storytellers. Kathleen was there. Everyone who's submitted a story will be at one of those, and we'd love to have you join us. And then also, we're doing this again next year. So keep an eye out for the email. It's always good, I think, to have a little dose of stories in our lives. So thank you again for a wonderful evening, for talking with the people next to you. We'll see you later. Oh, feel free to hang around for a bit and chat with people. We've got this all day, so don't feel like you got to rush out.